Let's get into it, because this one right here, it's not just hip-hop history, it's family war. We're talking about one of the most jaw-dropping, heartbreaking feuds the rap game has ever seen. Eminem versus his own mother. Yeah, you heard that right. Before he was the rap god we know today, Marshall Mathers was fighting battles that had nothing to do with record labels or rival MCs. It was all happening inside his own home. Back in the late 90s, headlines exploded when Eminem's mother, Debbie Mathers, sued her own son for $10 million. Fans couldn't believe it. How does a mom take her son, the same one who struggled to feed himself as a kid, to court for millions? But what if we told you that lawsuit was just the tip of the iceberg? What if behind the bars, behind the fame, and behind the tears, there was a secret truth that neither side ever wanted the world to see? This wasn't just about money. It was about betrayal, pride, and pain that had been building for decades. From tear-stained letters to explosive phone calls that never made it to the public eye. This story goes way deeper than court papers. And tonight we're uncovering the real story behind why Eminem's own mother turned against him, and how their feud nearly destroyed everything he built. Buckle up, because this isn't just rap drama. This is personal tragedy. It was 1999. Eminem was everywhere. From MTV to Rolling Stone covers, his bleached blonde hair and wild rhymes had America both fascinated and terrified. But while My Name Is was climbing charts, behind the glitz, a storm was brewing in Detroit, one that would change Marshall Mathers' life forever. Out of nowhere, the news broke. Eminem's mother, Debbie Mathers, had filed a $10 million lawsuit against him. The woman who raised him, the one he rapped about in My Name Is and Brain Damage, was now suing him for defamation. The headline read, "Rapper Sued by His Own Mother." The entire hip-hop world froze. Fans were stunned. Rappers laughed. The media went wild. But inside Eminem's circle, it wasn't funny at all. It was painful. According to insiders close to M, when the lawsuit dropped, he was sitting in the studio finishing The Real Slim Shady. His manager, Paul Rosenberg, walked in holding a newspaper. He didn't say a word, just placed it on the desk. The headline glared back at him. M looked at it, smirked for a second, then his face dropped. "She really did this?" he whispered. Nobody answered. The room went silent except for the hum of studio monitors. Then, without another word, he stormed out. People close to the situation say M drove straight to his childhood block on Dresden Street, parked across from his old house, and just sat there staring at the broken windows. "After everything I went through, she still wants more," he said to himself, tears in his eyes. But this wasn't just about the lawsuit. Insiders claim Debbie had been threatening to expose family secrets for years. Old medical files, audio tapes of their arguments, even private letters Marshall wrote her as a teen. She told him, "You made me look crazy in front of the world, now I'll make you look evil," said one former neighbor who claimed to have overheard a heated phone call. Eminem's legal team went into crisis mode. The lawsuit accused him of slanderous lyrics and fabricated stories about her drug addiction and mental health. Debbie claimed M exaggerated her behavior for fame. She wanted money and an apology. But the court filing made things even worse. It reignited every rumor that had ever surrounded the Mathers family. Abuse, neglect, pills, instability. Everything M had rapped about was now under a legal microscope. And while Debbie was doing TV interviews, telling shows like Inside Edition that her son needed help and was a liar, Eminem went silent. No statements. No interviews, just anger. Then came the night everything boiled over. According to an insider who was present, M received a phone call from his younger half-brother, Nathan, late one night. Nate was crying. "Mom's losing it again," he said. "She's saying you're trying to ruin her life." Eminem, exhausted, told him, "She already ruined mine." But what fans didn't know, what nobody knew, was that there was an entire tape Debbie had recorded when Marshall was 17 years old. A 45-minute audio cassette titled Marshall's Lies. In it, she claimed she captured teenage M yelling about wanting to escape the house and make the world know the truth. Debbie allegedly kept that tape hidden for years, and now, during the lawsuit, she was threatening to release it to the media. According to a Detroit journalist, Debbie had reached out to tabloids offering the tape for $50,000. She felt betrayed, the journalist said. She said, "If my own son's gonna make money off my pain, I'm gonna make money off his lies." But the deeper you go into the story, the darker it gets. Behind closed doors, Debbie wasn't acting alone. A man named Fred Sampson, her former boyfriend, had reportedly been feeding her legal advice and pushing her to go public. Fred, who claimed to have helped raise Marshall, told local reporters, "He used us for his songs. Now he's rich and doesn't even call. M's team didn't buy it." "That man was never around," Paul Rosenberg told someone close to the source. "He's using Debbie for attention. None of this is about truth, and it's about a payday." But for M, the betrayal hit harder than any diss track ever could. He told a friend, "I could handle Ja Rule, Benzino, whoever, but not her. Not my mom." As the case made its way through the court system, public interest exploded. News vans camped outside Debbie's house. Fans sent hate mail. And in one viral clip from that year, a reporter asked Eminem outside a studio, "Is it true your mom's suing you?" M looked straight into the camera and said, "Man, if I wanted to make my mom famous, I'd have given her a verse, not a lawsuit." That quote went everywhere. But behind the jokes, something darker was happening. Eminem started spiraling. People close to him said he was barely sleeping, taking pills just to numb out the chaos. "He felt like he had no one," said a producer who worked on the Marshall Mathers LP. His mom was suing him. His ex was mad at him, and the press was calling him a monster. That's when he started writing The Real Pain. And out of that pain came some of his most haunting music. Cleaning Out My Closet wasn't just a song, it was therapy. Every line, every bar was him bleeding onto the mic. But when Debbie heard that track, she didn't cry. She retaliated. Just a week after the song dropped, Debbie released a public statement through her lawyer. "Marshall has turned his personal resentment into a circus act. I never abused him. I loved my son. But fame has made him cruel." Fans were divided. Some called her a liar. Others wondered if maybe M's anger had twisted his memories. But either way, the mother-son bond was completely shattered. And that's where the story should have ended. A tragic family feud that went public. But it didn't end there. Because a few months later, something happened that would drag their war to an entirely new level. A secret that had been buried for decades was about to resurface. And when it did, it would prove that the feud between Eminem and his mother wasn't about money at all. It was about revenge. After months of silence, the entire hip-hop world thought the Eminem versus Debbie Mathers feud had cooled off. The lawsuit was crawling through court, and both sides were tight-lipped. But then, out of nowhere, a Detroit radio DJ claimed to have received something in the mail that would reignite everything. A mysterious cassette labeled Marshall's Lies 1991. The station didn't air it immediately. At first, they thought it was fake, maybe a fan hoax. But when they played a few seconds, they froze. The voice on the tape sounded exactly like a teenage Eminem, angry, emotional, and heartbroken. The recording began with a slamming door. Then a young voice shouted, "You don't get it, Mom! You're the reason everything's messed up." Debbie's voice snapped back, trembling but cold, "I'm the reason you're alive!" What followed was a 40-minute storm of yelling, tears, and pain, raw, real, and devastating. Within hours, snippets of the tape leaked online. Blogs ran wild. Leaked audio, teenage Eminem screams at his mom. Twitter blew up. Fans were shocked. Some defended him, saying he was a kid venting pain. Others accused him of exaggerating abuse for fame. But the biggest shock came when Debbie herself went live on a Detroit talk show. Sitting in a powder blue sweater, visibly nervous but defiant, she looked straight into the camera and said, "That's my son on that tape. I didn't want to release it, but people need to know the truth." The host asked, "Did you leak it?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I sent it to the station, I had to. He made me look like a monster for years. Now let the world hear who he really was." That clip broke the internet. Eminem's team scrambled to control the damage. His lawyer released a statement. "This so-called tape is decades old and taken out of context. Eminem has always been honest about his upbringing. The release of this audio is nothing more than emotional blackmail." But inside, M was crushed. According to one of his close friends at the time, he felt betrayed all over again. He said, "It's not even about the money anymore. She's trying to bury me. Not even about the money anymore. She's trying to bury me." And that's when things got darker. Within days of the leak, Debbie's old boyfriend Fred Sampson started shopping around a tell-all book proposal titled Raising Slim Shady: The Truth Behind the Monster. He claimed he had proof that Marshall's stories about poverty and abuse were exaggerated. "We lived rough," Fred said in a teaser interview. But it wasn't like he says in his songs. He's turned his mom's pain into his punchlines. The proposal was picked up by a small publisher. Advance copies started circulating in Detroit, and one found its way into Eminem's hands. When he read it, insiders say he lost it. He tore through the pages, muttering under his breath, "This is all lies. All of it." He punched a hole in the wall of his studio and locked himself inside for hours. When he came out, he said just one thing to his team. "They want to talk? I'll make a whole album about them." And that's exactly what he did. While the world was fixated on Debbie's interviews and Fred's so-called book deal, Eminem disappeared into the studio. The sessions were long, dark, and emotional. "He was purging everything," said a producer. "It wasn't even about music anymore. It was therapy." You could see it in his eyes when he was hurt but focused. And that's when he wrote "Cleaning Out My Closet." The anger in that track wasn't just performance, it was personal. Every bar hit like a wound reopening. "Haley's growing up so fast. You gon' see her, she won't even recognize you. Mom." When fans first heard it, they thought it was just art. But insiders knew it was a message. When Debbie heard that line, she reportedly broke down in tears. But she didn't back down. Instead, she made another public move, one that would shock even her own family. A week after "Cleaning Out My Closet" topped the charts, Debbie announced she was writing her own album. Not a rap record, but a response album. She titled it Dear Marshall. It was supposed to tell her side, in spoken word form. People laughed at first, thinking it was a stunt. But when snippets leaked, fans couldn't believe it. Debbie's trembling voice recited lines like, "You made millions painting me as insane, but you forgot the nights I held you through the rain." Some fans sympathized. Others called it emotional manipulation. But either way, it was working. The feud was feeding the public's obsession. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. During a live interview to promote Dear Marshall, Debbie was asked if she'd ever forgive her son. She hesitated, and then said something that froze the studio. "I don't know," she said quietly. "Not after what he did to my sister." The host blinked. "Your sister?" Debbie nodded. "He knows what I'm talking about." That one sentence lit social media on fire. What did she mean? Was there a deeper family secret? Bloggers and YouTubers went into detective mode. Within days, an old name resurfaced: Janice Mathers, Eminem's aunt. She'd been close to him growing up, almost like a second mom, until something mysterious, that cryptic line, sent conspiracy theories flying. Some claimed Eminem had cut Janice off financially. Others said she'd tried to sell family photos to tabloids. But one rumor hit harder than all, that Debbie and Janice had once plotted together to use Eminem's fame for a reality show pitch called Raising Slim. Emails allegedly leaked between producers at VH1, and Debbie's lawyer discussed a family reconciliation docuseries. The deal fell apart when Eminem's camp refused to participate. Furious, Debbie reportedly told producers, "Fine, I'll make my own story without him." And now it seemed that story was her revenge. By the end of that year, Debbie's book, Fred's interviews, and Janice's cryptic statements had created a media circus. But the feud wasn't over yet, because Eminem was preparing a move that would turn this family drama into a full-blown war. According to an insider, M told his team, "If she wants to go public, I'll give her what she wants. I'll expose everything." And soon, he would, but not through interviews, not through press statements. Through music. Because buried deep inside his vault were unreleased tracks, songs that nobody outside of his circle had ever heard, songs that detailed everything. From the nights he slept in motels to the pills scattered on the kitchen counter. And when one of those songs accidentally leaked online, everything would change. By early 2001, Eminem's career was untouchable. Grammy wins, sold-out tours, millions of records sold. He was the face of an entire era. But behind that success, his family was falling apart in the public eye. The lawsuit with his mom dragged on. The leaked tape had turned the media against him. And now, something worse was coming. Something he didn't even do. One night in March, a 17-year-old hacker from Ohio uploaded a folder titled Eminem The Vault Leaks to an underground forum. Inside were 5 rough, unfinished songs, demos never meant to see daylight. The files spread like wildfire, but one of them would shake the world. The track, labeled Dear Debbie, unreleased, opened with a sound clip of Debbie's voice from a TV interview saying, "Marshall needs help." Then Eminem's voice came in, was raw, broken, but furious. He rapped about being locked in his room as a kid, about missing dinners, about someone crushing pills into mashed potatoes. The lyrics were brutal, specific, and painful. Too specific. Fans were stunned. He's really exposing her, one Reddit user wrote. Others wondered if the track was even real. But producers confirmed it. It was genuine. The leak hit Debbie like a truck. She went live on local TV the next day, crying through smeared makeup, saying, "That's a private song." That's not fair. But the internet didn't care. People dissected every lyric, hunted for meanings, and made memes out of her crying face. Eminem was furious, and not at his mom, but at the leak. That wasn't supposed to come out, he told his manager Paul. That was therapy. That wasn't for the world. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done. Then came the phone call, the one that would change everything. According to a studio engineer who was present, Debbie called Eminem directly for the first time in years. "Marshall?" she said quietly. He paused for a long time before answering. "Yeah," her voice trembled. "You really hate me that much?" he sighed. "No, Mom, I just hate what we became." There was silence. Heavy, choking silence. Before she said something that caught him off guard. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to raise a son who raps about me like I'm the devil?" Eminem's voice cracked. "You sued me for $10 million, Mom. You went on TV and called me a liar. What did you expect me to do? Write a Hallmark card?" That was the first real conversation they'd had in nearly 5 years, and it didn't go well. Sources say Debbie hung up in tears. Em sat there staring at the floor, whispering, "I shouldn't have answered." But the universe wasn't done testing them. A week later, TMZ, which was still new back then, ran a shocking headline. Eminem and his mother secretly meet in Detroit. Diner. The article claimed that Em and Debbie had been spotted having breakfast together at a quiet diner off 8 Mile Road. Fans went crazy. Was a reconciliation happening? But according to eyewitnesses, that breakfast was far from peaceful. A waitress named Carol, who later sold her story to tabloids, said the two sat across from each other in silence for 10 minutes. Then Em said, "Why'd you do it, Mom?" Debbie took a shaky breath. "Because you made me the villain." Em leaned back. "You made yourself the villain when you went public." Voices started rising. Plates clinked. Customers turned heads. "It was like watching a movie," Carol said. He wasn't Slim Shady in that moment. He was just a son talking to his mom, hurt. Finally, Debbie stood up, tears in her eyes, and said, "You've already buried me in your songs. I don't have anything left to lose." Then she walked out. Em sat there, jaw clenched, staring at his untouched food. That moment, that painful diner meeting, reportedly became the inspiration for another unreleased track, Mother's Day. But that song was never officially released. Rumor has it Em recorded it, played it once in the studio, and deleted it. Around the same time, new cracks began forming in Eminem's personal life. Kim, his on and off wife, was furious about how the family drama was dominating headlines again. "Your mom's everywhere," she told him. "This is never gonna end." Em snapped back, "You think I want this?" But deep down, he knew this feud was eating him alive. Debbie, meanwhile, had started to regret her choices. Friends said she began suffering panic attacks. She'd wake up at night screaming his lyrics, one old friend said. It's like she couldn't escape her own son's voice. In a desperate move, she reached out to Em's younger brother, Nate, asking him to help fix things. But Nate, who had lived with Eminem for years, refused. "You had your chance," he told her. "You picked the cameras over your family." That broke her. She reportedly started writing letters to Eminem. Dozens of them, but never sent them. Years later, a few of those letters surfaced in a Detroit pawn shop, written in shaky cursive. "Marshall, I don't know who we are anymore. You're not the boy I raised, and I'm not the mother you sing about." Maybe we both became characters. But even as Debbie's guilt grew, Eminem was doubling down. The media kept poking him for a response, and finally, in one interview, he said, "Look, I've made peace with my past, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." Fans took that as shade toward his mom. Debbie took it as an insult. Once again, she snapped. In a last-ditch attempt to reclaim her narrative, she recorded a YouTube video, shaky, emotional, filmed in her kitchen, titled "The Truth About My Son Marshall." In it, she sat beside old photo albums, showing baby pictures of Eminem and saying things like, "He wasn't always angry. He used to write me poems. What happened to that boy?" The video went viral overnight. Millions watched it. Some sympathized. Others mocked it, but the impact was undeniable. For the first time, the public saw Debbie not as a villain, but as a broken mother trying to reach out. When Eminem saw it, people close to him say he didn't get angry, he got quiet. He rewatched it 3 times, said nothing, then went to the studio and wrote for 6 hours straight. That session reportedly birthed the earliest version of Headlights. But that song wouldn't see daylight for more than a decade. Back then, he still wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. And yet, despite all the noise, lawsuits, and leaked songs, something strange started to happen. Both sides went quiet. No interviews. No statements. Just silence. For the first time in years, the world stopped talking about the Mathers feud. But that silence wouldn't last long, because a final twist, one nobody saw coming, was about to hit the world like a shockwave. A medical emergency. A hospital. A call Eminem never thought he'd get. And it would change everything. By 2003, the world knew Eminem as the biggest rapper alive. A lyrical assassin, a chart destroyer, the man who turned pain into platinum. But behind all the fame, Marshall Mathers was still haunted by a voice he hadn't heard in years, his mother's. Then one quiet night, that voice came back, but not through a phone call or an interview, through his brother Nate. It was just after midnight when Nate showed up at M's mansion outside Detroit, pale and shaken. "We gotta go," he said. "It's Mom." Eminem froze. "What happened?" She collapsed. They said it's her heart. M didn't speak, didn't move. He just stared for a moment, then grabbed his keys. They drove in silence, the kind that says everything words can't. When they arrived at St. John's Hospital, reporters were already outside. Somehow the news had leaked. Cameras flashed as M walked in wearing a hoodie, head down. Inside, the air was thick with antiseptic and dread. Debbie was in the ICU, hooked up to machines, pale and fragile. For the first time in years, she wasn't on camera, she wasn't shouting, she was silent. Just breathing. The nurse looked up and whispered, "She's been asking for you." Eminem hesitated at the doorway. For a second, he thought about turning around and leaving. After all the pain, the betrayal, the lawsuits, the tapes. Why now? But then he saw her hand twitch, weakly reaching out. And something broke inside him. He stepped forward, slowly, carefully. "Hey, Mom," he said, voice cracking. "It's me." Her eyelids fluttered. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Marshall?" He nodded. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." He swallowed hard. "Yeah, me neither." The room went quiet again. Just the sound of the machines. Beep, beep, beep. For the first time since he was a teenager, Eminem sat beside his mother without yelling, without judgment. Just sitting. Just existing. Doctors told him she'd suffered a mild heart attack, complicated by stress and poor health. They weren't sure if she'd fully recover. M stayed the entire night. He refused to leave. Nurses said he barely moved, just sat in the chair, staring at her hand in his. At one point, she whispered, "You were always angry." He smirked sadly. "Yeah, guess I got that from you." She gave a weak laugh, the kind that carried years of pain and love all tangled together. By morning, she was stable. Before leaving, M told the nurse, "If she needs anything, and I'll take care of it." When he got back to his car, Nate asked, "You okay?" Eminem stared out the window. "Not really," he said quietly, "but I think I'm done fighting." That hospital visit changed everything. In the weeks that followed, Debbie's health slowly improved. And for the first time in over a decade, she and Marshall started exchanging messages. Not public statements, not legal letters, actual letters. According to someone close to the family, the first one from Eminem simply said, "I don't know how to start over, but I'm willing to try." Debbie wrote back, "You already did the moment you walked into that room." Fans didn't know any of this. To the public, the feud was ancient history. The mother who sued her son, and the rapper who roasted her in songs. But behind the scenes, something real was happening. Eminem even began quietly paying her medical bills, though he told his lawyers never to announce it. "It's not for PR," he said. "It's just right." But make no mistake, forgiveness didn't come easy. They didn't suddenly become best friends. Years of resentment don't just disappear. There were still painful phone calls, awkward silences, and nights when old wounds reopened. Still, it was progress. Then in 2010, almost a decade later, Eminem dropped Recovery. And buried deep in that album was a song that shocked everyone. Headlights. It wasn't a diss. It wasn't angry. It was an apology. I went in head first, never thinking about what I said hurt. In what verse, my mom probably got it the worst. When fans first heard it, they couldn't believe it. This was the same Eminem who once rapped about hating his mom, now saying sorry. In the Headlights music video, a lookalike of Debbie is seen driving, trying to reach her son. At the end, she hugs him. It's symbolic and emotional. Fans around the world cried. Comment sections filled with messages like, "After all these years, he forgave her." But few knew that the video wasn't just metaphor. Debbie actually saw it before the world did. Eminem's manager, Paul Rosenberg, sent her a private copy. She watched it alone in her living room and reportedly sobbed through the entire thing. The next morning, she left a voicemail on Eminem's phone. Her voice was soft, trembling, but peaceful. "Marshall, I saw the video. I don't know what to say. I love you." Eminem never shared that voicemail publicly, but insiders say he kept it saved for years, even backed it up to multiple phones. And just like that, the story that started with a $10 million lawsuit, betrayal, and hate, ended with silence, peace, and maybe even love. They never became a picture-perfect family, but they did something more powerful. They let go. The lawsuit, the leaked tape, the books, the interviews, all of it faded into memory. Debbie retired from public life. Eminem stopped talking about her in songs. It was like both decided the war was finally over. In one rare interview years later, a journalist asked Eminem, "Do you ever think about her?" He paused, nodded slowly, and said, "Every day." Then, after a beat, "We made peace, that's all that matters." And just like that, the feud that once defined hip-hop's most controversial artist came full circle. A mother who sued her son for $10 million, a son who turned pain into poetry, two people who lost each other in fame, and somehow found their way back through forgiveness. At the end of the day, this story isn't just about Eminem and his mom. It's about what fame, pain, and pride can do to family. How the spotlight doesn't just expose your talent, it exposes your scars. Eminem spent years fighting the ghosts of his past, his mom, his childhood, his demons. But when you look at where he ended up, it's almost poetic. The same man who once rapped, "I'm sorry, mama, I never meant to hurt you," eventually lived those words for real. And Debbie? She became one of the most complicated figures in hip-hop lore. A woman both hated and pitied, villainized and humanized, all because her son dared to tell his truth. Their feud gave us some of the most emotional, powerful music of the 2000s. It showed us that behind the fame, behind the genius, there's still a kid from Detroit just trying to make peace with his past. But here's the question that still lingers. If that lawsuit never happened, would Eminem have become Eminem? Would we still have those songs, those bars, that fire? Maybe pain really was the price of greatness. Either way, the feud between Eminem and his mom will always be remembered, not just as a scandal, but as a reminder that even broken families can find a way to heal. What do you think? Was Debbie wrong for suing her son? Or was Eminem wrong for airing family pain to the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into hip-hop's most personal drama, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more real meets fake stories, and turn on your notifications so you never miss the next drop. Because in this game, truth is stranger than fiction, and sometimes even family can become your biggest rival.